The great palace of the Cyborg Queen stood silent in the middle of a metal city that stretched across the planet's surface. Its shining towers reached into the storm clouds, glowing with cold blue light. Everything inside the palace moved with mechanical precision, guards of steel, servants of silver, and machines that never slept. But that night, something broke the silence, a cry. It was small and fragile, yet it echoed through every hall like thunder. The royal baby, the queen's only child, would not stop crying. The sound confused the machines, irritated the guards, and made even the emotionless servants pause. No one in the palace had ever heard such a thing before, a cry that carried pain, fear, and something even deeper, a longing for warmth. The queen stood before the cradle, her eyes glowing softly with a mix of light and sorrow. Her skin shimmered with silver patterns, half human, half machine. For the first time in her reign, she looked helpless. Her army could crush planets, her fleets could erase empires, but her baby's tears were stronger than all of them. "Why won't she stop?" the queen whispered, her voice trembling. The doctors bowed low, their mechanical faces blank. "We have tried everything, Majesty," said one. "We adjusted her heart processors, her oxygen balance, her neural core. But the crying continues." The queen clenched her fists. "Machines don't cry," she said coldly. And yet she does. For weeks, the palace was filled with the sound of the baby's cries. Every corridor carried it, every servant heard it. Some whispered that the child was cursed. Others said the half-human heart inside her was rejecting the machine body. The queen forbade anyone to speak of it, but the rumor spread across the stars. The royal child of the Cyborg Queen is broken. The queen began to lose sleep. She spent nights beside the cradle trying to soothe her child. She played the softest music, projected warm holograms, even surrounded the baby with glowing comfort drones. Nothing worked. The child cried harder, her tiny metallic fingers clutching the air as if reaching for something unseen. "Bring me the greatest engineers," the queen commanded one morning, her voice sharp like a blade. "If no one can fix her, I will dismantle the entire lab that built her." One by one, experts from across the empire arrived. They tested, measured, and recalibrated. They spoke in numbers and formulas, but the crying never stopped. Days turned into weeks, and the mighty Cyborg Queen began to understand something she had never known before: the pain of being powerless. Her advisors grew afraid to speak. The guards moved quietly, avoiding her eyes. The palace, once filled with the hum of machines, now seemed haunted by the baby's endless sobs. One night, as lightning flashed outside the crystal windows, the queen walked to her throne room and stood alone. The baby's cry echoed even there, faint but constant. She looked at her reflection in the black glass of the throne. The woman who stared back wasn't a queen of metal and power. She was a mother in despair. She placed a hand on her chest where her heart should be. Underneath the metal plates, a faint pulse reminded her that once, long ago, she had been human. "Maybe," she whispered to herself, "that is what she cries for." For the first time in many years, a tear escaped her mechanical eye. At that moment, her chief attendant entered the room, bowing low. "Majesty, we have searched the entire empire. There is one more option." The queen turned sharply. "Speak." "There is a human," the attendant said slowly. "A man from the colony of Alaris. He is not a doctor nor an engineer by title, but they say he once repaired a machine no one else could. They say he understands what others only build." The queen's eyes flickered. "A human?" she repeated, almost with disgust. "Yes, Majesty. A single father. He lives with his daughter on the outer colonies. His name is Eli Ward." For a long moment, the queen said nothing. The storm outside raged louder, lightning illuminating her pale face. Finally, she spoke in a cold, tired whisper. "Bring him to me." As the attendants hurried away, the queen walked back to the cradle. The baby's glowing eyes blinked up at her, still wet with tears. "Someone will come for you soon, my little one," she murmured softly. "Someone who can fix what even I cannot." Outside, the thunder rolled across the metal sky, carrying the child's cry to the farthest corners of the galaxy, where a human single dad named Eli Ward was about to have his quiet life changed forever. Far away from the shining metal cities of the Cyborg Empire, on a quiet farming colony called Alaris 9, lived a man named Eli Ward. He was human, ordinary, humble, and tired. Every morning he woke before the sun, packed a small lunch for his daughter Mira, and went to work repairing broken machines in the colony workshop. The workshop smelled of oil and dust, filled with old robots and forgotten tech from the war. Most people saw them as scrap. But Eli had a strange gift. He could look at a broken circuit and somehow feel what was wrong, as if the machine spoke to him in silence. His gentle hands could fix what no scanner could detect. To the locals, he was just the machine whisperer. To his daughter, he was everything. "Daddy, when will Mommy come back?" Mira asked one night as they sat under the stars outside their small home. Eli looked at her softly. "She won't, sweetheart. She's with the stars now." Mira nodded, hugging her small stuffed toy. She was only 6, bright-eyed and curious. She didn't understand loss the way he did, but she felt the emptiness all the same. For Eli, life had become simple. Work, care for Mira, and survive quietly. The galaxy beyond Alaris 9 was dangerous, especially for humans. The cyborg empire ruled most of it, and humans were often seen as weak, emotional creatures. But Eli didn't care about politics. He only wanted peace for his daughter. That peace ended one stormy night. Thunder rumbled above the colony. The ground trembled as a royal transport ship descended from the clouds, its engines glowing with blue fire. People ran into their homes, afraid to even look. The cyborg emblem glowed on the hull, a silver crown of gears. The ship landed right outside Eli's workshop. The door hissed open, releasing a wave of cold mist. Out stepped 2 towering cyborg royal guards, their metal armor gleaming in the lightning. Eli Ward, one of them spoke, voice deep and mechanical. "You are required by command of the Cyborg Queen." Eli froze, wiping his hands on a rag. "The Queen?" he said, confused. "You must be mistaken. I'm just a repairman." "The Queen does not make mistakes," the guard replied. "You will come with us immediately." Mira, frightened, clutched her father's leg. "Daddy, don't go." Eli knelt beside her, heart racing. "It's okay, sweetheart. I'll be back soon. I promise." He hugged her tightly, whispering in her ear, "Stay with Aunt Nira next door. Don't be scared." He stood up slowly, hands trembling. "At least tell me what this is about." The guard turned its cold eyes toward him. "A child," it said simply. "The Queen's child. The baby won't stop crying." Eli blinked. "You want me to fix a crying baby?" "Yes," the guard replied without emotion. "You repaired a core reactor that no AI could restore. The Queen believes you can repair anything. You will leave now." Before Eli could protest, they escorted him into the ship. The doors sealed shut, and with a thunderous roar, the transport lifted into the sky. As he stared out the window, watching the only home he'd ever known shrink below him, Eli felt both fear and disbelief. Why would the most powerful ruler in the galaxy want him? A single father, a simple mechanic to help her. Hours later, the ship broke through the glowing clouds of the cyborg capital world. Virella Prime. What he saw stole his breath away. The city was a sea of light and metal, endless towers stretching into space, bridges humming with energy, and ships flying like stars across the sky. But it all felt lifeless, too perfect, too cold. The ship landed inside the royal hangar. Guards surrounded him, silent and motionless like statues. One of them gestured forward. "Follow." Eli walked through long corridors of silver and glass, his footsteps echoing. Everything glowed with artificial light, but there was no warmth anywhere. Finally, the guard stopped before a massive golden door. "The Queen awaits." The door slid open with a hiss. Inside was a vast throne room, walls lined with living circuits that pulsed like veins. And on a high platform stood the Cyborg Queen, tall and graceful, her body part metal, part flesh. Her eyes glowed like molten gold, but behind that glow was exhaustion. In her arms, wrapped in silver cloth, was a tiny baby. And the baby was crying, softly but endlessly, a heartbreaking sound that filled the entire hall. Eli stood frozen, unsure whether to bow or speak. The Queen's gaze locked on him. "You are the human they call Eli Ward," she said. Her voice was calm, almost musical, but filled with weariness. "Yes, Your Majesty," he managed to say. She looked down at the baby, then back at him. "You will fix my child." Eli's heart pounded. "Your child? I fix machines, not—" The Queen's voice cut him off, sharp as steel. "You will try. If you fail—" She paused, the air chilling around her. "You will not leave this palace alive." Eli swallowed hard. He looked at the crying baby, Tiny, fragile, eyes glowing faint blue. Somewhere deep inside him, something stirred. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Something human. And as the baby's cries filled the room, Eli Ward realized this wasn't a job. It was a test of his heart. The massive doors of the royal nursery slid open with a soft hiss, and Eli Ward stepped inside, guided by two silent cyborg guards. The air felt cold, so cold it bit at his skin. The room shimmered with silver walls, glowing softly like moonlight on ice. It was a nursery fit for a queen's child, yet it looked more like a laboratory. Machines floated around the crib, blinking with red lights. Mechanical arms adjusted sensors. Soothing holograms hovered above the child, and tubes hummed with energy. But in the middle of all this perfect technology, the tiny half-cyborg baby lay crying, her sound echoing like something painfully alive in a room that didn't understand life at all. Eli took a step forward. The baby's small eyes glowed faint blue, her cheeks streaked with tears that sparkled like liquid light. Her little chest rose and fell unevenly. It wasn't just a cry, it was a plea. The queen stood beside the crib, her expression calm, but her eyes revealed something she tried to hide. Helplessness. Her silver crown pulsed with faint blue energy as she turned toward him. "Do you understand why you are here, human?" she asked quietly. Eli bowed slightly, unsure of royal manners. "To fix Her Majesty," he said. "If I can." The queen's golden eyes narrowed. "You will. Failure is not an option." He looked around at the humming machines, the floating monitors, the cold air. "You've already tried everything," he said softly. "This room feels more like a control chamber than a nursery." The queen's lips pressed together. "My engineers did what they could. She is half flesh, half circuit. Her systems reject both medicine and code. No solution works." Eli approached the crib slowly. The guards stiffened, their metallic hands twitching near their weapons, but the queen raised her hand to stop them. "Let him see," she ordered. Eli knelt beside the baby, his reflection bending in the smooth steel floor. He studied the child, not as a mechanic studying a machine, but as a father seeing a child in pain. Her little hand opened weakly, reaching toward nothing. "Hey there," he whispered, voice soft and gentle. "You're fighting so hard, aren't you?" The baby's cries softened for a moment, almost curious, then started again, louder. Eli frowned, looking at the glowing lines on her arms and chest. "Her neural regulators are overheating," he murmured. "She's not malfunctioning, she's overwhelmed." The queen tilted her head slightly. "Explain," Eli hesitated. "She's feeling too much. Too many signals. Machines are cold, but humans feel. Her mind can't process all that emotion and code at the same time. She's scared." The queen looked away for a moment, her voice trembling faintly. "A machine cannot be afraid." Eli met her eyes. "But your daughter isn't a machine." The silence in the room deepened. The floating drones slowed their motion as if listening. Even the queen's breathing seemed to pause. For a long time, the queen said nothing. Then, with a voice barely louder than a whisper, she said, "Do what you must, human. But if you harm her—" "I won't," Eli said softly. He reached toward the baby, but the guards tensed again. The queen raised her hand once more, her eyes locked on him. "No one has ever touched the royal child," she said coldly. "Not even me." Eli froze. "Not even you?" "She is too fragile, too unpredictable," the queen replied, her tone caught between logic and guilt. Eli looked back at the crying baby, whose little arms were now shaking. "That's why she cries," he murmured. "She doesn't need fixing. She needs to be held." Before anyone could stop him, he gently placed his hands beneath the child and lifted her. The room seemed to gasp. Warning lights flashed red for a moment. Drones whirred in alarm, but the baby's cry faltered. The queen's eyes widened. The tiny half-cybernetic girl blinked up at Eli, tears still glimmering on her cheeks. For the first time, her glowing eyes stopped flickering. She stared into his human face, the warmth, the pulse, the heart she could sense but never knew. Then she sighed. And the crying stopped. The silence was powerful. Even the machines seemed unsure how to react. Eli rocked her gently, humming softly like he used to for his own daughter. "That's it," he whispered. "You're safe. You're okay." The queen stepped closer, her metallic fingers trembling. "How did you do that?" she asked, her voice unsteady. Eli smiled faintly. "I didn't do anything, Majesty. She just needed to know someone cared." For a long moment, the queen said nothing. The flickering light from the machines reflected off her silver cheeks, and something wet, something like a tear, slid down one side of her face. She touched her own chest, where her heart used to beat before it was replaced with circuits. So it's not a problem of code, she whispered. It's emotion, Eli nodded gently. Even machines can break when they're lonely. He looked at the baby again, now quiet, eyes slowly closing. She rested against him peacefully, her soft hum syncing with his heartbeat. The Queen stared, mesmerized. For the first time in years, her palace, made of cold metal and empty sound, felt alive. And deep inside her, where wires met memories, something long lost began to flicker again. Something human. For the first time in many cycles, the royal nursery was silent. No crying, no alarms, no endless echo of pain. The Cyborg Queen stood motionless beside Eli Ward, staring at the impossible scene before her. The tiny half-cybernetic baby sleeping peacefully in the arms of a human. The hum of machines filled the background, confused as if unsure whether to continue functioning. The floating drones, programmed to calm the royal child, hovered quietly. Their sensors showed perfect stability. The baby's heart, half metal, half flesh, beat in gentle rhythm. Eli looked down at the little girl. Her small fingers rested on his chest, right where his human heart thumped steadily. Every now and then she'd let out a soft sigh like she finally felt safe. The Queen's voice broke the silence. She has never done this before, she said slowly. Every sound, every vibration used to upset her. Yet now, she just needed warmth, Eli said softly, still rocking the baby. Machines are perfect, but perfection can't comfort a child. The Queen stepped closer, her glowing eyes uncertain. Warmth, she repeated, as if testing the word. You mean heat? Eli smiled faintly. Not that kind of warmth. The warmth of being cared for, the feeling that someone is near and loves you. The Queen's metallic brows furrowed. Love, she said quietly, almost like the word itself was strange to her. Such an unstable concept, he chuckled gently. Yes, and that's what makes it real. The Queen stared at him for a long moment. Her mechanical mind analyzed every heartbeat, every word, every movement. Her processors could understand patterns and data, but what she saw before her didn't fit any formula. Human, she finally said. You speak as if emotion is a cure. Eli's eyes softened. Sometimes it is. The Queen looked at the child again. The glow of the baby's circuitry was dimming, no longer frantic or flickering. Peaceful. Balanced. Eli lowered his voice. Do you want to try? The Queen blinked. Try what? Holding her. The words hung in the air like a forbidden command. The guards shifted nervously. Even the drones whirred uneasily. No one touches the royal child, one guard spoke, his metallic voice tense. Not even Her Majesty. Silence, the Queen ordered. The guards froze. The Queen turned her gaze back to Eli, then to her baby. Her fingers trembled slightly. If I harm her, you won't, Eli said softly. You're her mother. That word, mother, hit her harder than any weapon. She had been called ruler, empress, machine goddess, but never mother. Eli gently extended the child toward her. For a moment, the Queen hesitated. Her shining metal hands hovered uncertainly in the air. Then slowly she reached out. The baby stirred but didn't cry. The Queen's touch was cold at first, her fingers too precise, too careful. Relax, Eli whispered. She can feel your fear. The Queen looked at him. I do not feel fear. Then what is your hand shaking for? He said softly. Her gaze dropped to her trembling hand. Slowly she adjusted her grip. The child's little body settled into her arms. For a long, fragile moment, the Queen stood there holding her baby. Her golden eyes glowed brighter, reflecting the soft light from the child's skin. The metal against flesh made a strange harmony, a balance between warmth and cold, life and machine. The Queen's voice trembled. Her heart, I can feel it, Eli smiled, and she can feel yours. The Queen looked down again, tears she didn't know she could shed forming in her eyes. One drop slid down her cheek, sizzling slightly as it hit the warm metal. She's so small, the Queen whispered. So human. Half of her comes from you, Eli said. The other half from someone who must have loved you deeply. The Queen's face darkened. Her father was human. She hesitated. He died protecting me. I thought making her part machine would make her stronger. Safer. Eli shook his head gently. You made her survive, yes. But not live, the queen closed her eyes. Those words sank into her deeper than any code could. She had given her daughter the power of metal but taken away the comfort of touch. Now holding her child, she understood for the first time what that touch truly meant. The baby made a soft noise and pressed closer to her chest. The queen froze again, then relaxed, following Eli's quiet instruction to breathe slowly, naturally. When the child smiled for the first time, the queen gasped. Xiao smiled. Eli grinned. That's what babies do when they feel safe. The queen looked down at the sleeping face and whispered, "Safe." The word tasted new and beautiful. Outside, the endless city of metal light seemed to glow warmer than before. Even the cold stars above the palace flickered gently, as if watching something sacred unfold. For the first time since her rule began, the Cyborg Queen didn't feel like a ruler or a machine. She felt like a mother, and in that moment, as the human stood silently beside her, something impossible happened. The cold palace of steel felt the pulse of life. The morning light crept through the glass walls of the palace, turning the cold metal floors into rivers of gold. The great city of Varela Prime woke to another perfect day. Machines humming in harmony, skies filled with silver airships. But inside the queen's private chamber, something was different. For the first time in months, the royal nursery was quiet. The baby slept peacefully in a cradle of silver and silk, her small chest rising and falling in rhythm with the faint hum of her mechanical heart. The Cyborg Queen stood nearby, watching her daughter with eyes that glowed faintly blue. Behind her, Eli Ward stood silently, hands folded, not wanting to break the fragile peace. "You did what no one else could, human," the queen said at last, her voice calm but heavy. "You gave me back." Silence. Eli smiled faintly. She just needed someone to understand her. The queen turned, her expression unreadable. "You speak as though understanding is simple." "It isn't," Eli admitted. "But sometimes it begins with listening." The queen studied him for a long moment. There was something about this human, something she couldn't analyze or measure. He spoke with no fear, no flattery, just truth. Finally, she gestured toward the child. "You should know," she said quietly, "that she is not like others. She is my greatest mistake and my greatest love." Eli frowned. "Mistake?" The queen walked toward the window, looking out over her endless empire. "You humans call it love. We call it error. It was forbidden for one such as I to feel affection for a human." Eli's heart skipped. "Her father?" "Yes." The queen's voice grew softer. "He was a soldier, one of your kind. Brave, stubborn, foolish. He saved my life during the war when no one else dared to. His name was Jonas Venn." She closed her eyes as if saying the name hurt. "He found me trapped under the ruins of my own palace. My body was failing, circuits burned, metal torn. He carried me through fire and chaos even though my kind had destroyed his world." Eli listened in silence. "He stayed by my side when I was weak," the queen continued, her voice trembling slightly. "He spoke to me as if I was human." He laughed even when my voice frightened him. "Over time I began to feel something I could not process. Something that made no sense to my logic cores." She placed her hand over her chest. "He called it love." Eli's throat tightened. "And you believed him?" "I didn't at first," she admitted. "But when he was dying, when his body failed and mine remained, I finally understood. He begged me to live, to protect our child." She turned back toward the cradle, her metallic face glistening under the soft light. "The baby was born fragile. Too human to survive in our world. I used my own technology to save her. I replaced part of her heart with synthetic energy. I told myself it was mercy, but perhaps it was fear. Fear of losing the last piece of him." Eli felt his chest tighten. "You saved her, Majesty. You did what any parent would do." The queen looked down. "No, I changed her. I made her half of me and half machine. And when she cried, I could not bear it. It reminded me of what I took away. The sound of her pain was the echo of my guilt." Silence filled the room. The gentle hum of the palace seemed distant, as if the world itself paused to listen. Eli stepped closer. "You didn't take away her heart," he said softly. "You gave her two, one of metal, one of love. She cries not because she's broken, but because she feels both." The queen's eyes glimmered faintly. "Both?" "She feels your pain and her father's love," Eli said. "She carries both worlds inside her, The cold logic of machines and the warmth of humans. You didn't destroy her, Queen. You made her whole. The Queen's gaze dropped to the sleeping child. Her hand brushed the baby's small cheek. She smiled yesterday, she whispered. No machine ever made me feel that much. Eli nodded. That's what love does. It doesn't follow rules. It rewrites them. The Queen looked back at him, eyes softer than before. Your words are dangerous, human, she said quietly. If my council heard this, they would see it as corruption. Eli smiled faintly. Then maybe the galaxy needs a little corruption. For the first time, the Queen laughed, a quiet, almost human sound. It echoed softly across the chamber, startling even herself. When she looked back at her child, she whispered, Your father's world is gone. But perhaps through her, and through you, Eli Ward, it can live again. Outside, the sun rose higher over the cold city of steel, but in that room something warmer began to grow. Not from wires or circuits, but from hearts. The Cyborg Queen stood beside a human man and looked at her daughter. And for the first time since the war, she didn't see weakness in humanity. She saw hope. The following days were unlike any the Cyborg Queen had ever lived. Her palace, once filled with the hum of machines and the cold rhythm of perfect order, now echoed with something new. Laughter. Soft, uncertain, but real, the baby no longer cried through the nights. Instead, small giggles sometimes broke the silence, surprising the guards who had grown used to endless wailing. And in the middle of this quiet miracle was Eli Ward, the human repairman who had somehow fixed what no machine could. Eli spent every morning teaching the Queen small human things. Not lessons of power or war, but of care, patience, and heart. This, Eli said one morning, holding a soft blanket, isn't just cloth. It's comfort. Wrap her in it when she's scared. It's the warmth she understands best. The Queen examined the fabric with curiosity. It is inefficient. The palace maintains an ideal temperature at all times. Eli smiled. Warmth isn't about numbers, Majesty. It's about feeling safe. She hesitated, then slowly wrapped her daughter in the blanket, her movements awkward but careful. The baby cooed softly, pressing her small face into her mother's chest. The Queen froze, looking down in shock. She responds to touch. She responds to love, Eli said gently. The Queen looked up, her golden eyes filled with something unfamiliar. I never knew it could be taught. Eli chuckled quietly. It can't be taught. It's shared. Later that day, the Queen summoned her advisors and high engineers. They entered the throne room expecting another command or repair order. But what they found instead stunned them. The mighty Queen of Steel sat not on her throne, but on the floor, her child in her lap, a human kneeling beside her, showing her how to feed the baby a warm liquid through a soft bottle. One of the advisors, his face made of polished metal, stammered, Majesty, this is beneath your station. The Queen's head rose sharply. No, this is above it. The room fell silent. She looked at Eli. Continue. Eli tried not to smile too much, but it was hard. She needs rhythm, he said. Babies like to hear voices. Talk to her. Doesn't matter what you say, just let her know she's not alone. The Queen hesitated, then whispered, My daughter, the stars are beautiful tonight. The baby's fingers reached for her chin and she giggled. The Queen gasped softly, her voice trembling as she whispered again, She listens. Eli nodded. Every child listens to the sound of love. The advisors whispered among themselves, confused, maybe even afraid. Machines could obey commands, but this was chaos, emotion, humanity. The Queen turned to them, her voice cold again, but this time it carried something deeper. You see this child? She is the future of our kind. Half machine, half human, and for the first time I understand what that means. One advisor dared to speak. Majesty, with respect, emotion weakens logic. The Queen rose slowly, still holding her child. Then perhaps logic was never strong enough to keep us alive. The chamber went silent again. Even the walls, alive with energy, seemed to pause. That night, Eli sat alone in the garden outside the palace. The air shimmered with silver petals from the biomechanical trees. He missed his daughter Mira more than ever. She was safe back on Alaris 9, but the distance tore at his heart. He looked up at the glowing stars and whispered, She'd love this place. Maybe one day. A voice interrupted his thoughts. You miss your child, Eli turned. The queen stood nearby, the baby asleep in her arms. Her steps were softer now, less mechanical. I do, he admitted, every day. But what I learn here, it reminds me of her. Reminds me what being a father means. The queen looked down at the sleeping baby. I have ruled for years, commanded billions, yet I never understood the word mother until you came. Eli smiled faintly. That's the thing about being a parent. You don't rule your child, you learn with them. The queen's eyes softened. Learn? Yes, Eli said. You learn patience when they cry. You learn courage when they're sick. And you learn love every time they smile. The queen was silent for a long time. Then very softly she said, I thought humanity was a weakness. Now I see it is. Strength. Eli looked at her, the metal glint of her crown reflecting the stars. It's both, he said. But that's what makes it beautiful. The queen looked up at the sky. Jonas used to say the same thing, she whispered. Eli nodded. Then he was a wise man. For a moment, two worlds, flesh and metal, stood together in peace. The queen, once a symbol of perfection and control, had learned something no code could teach her. The power of imperfection. And as the baby slept quietly in her arms, the cyborg queen finally smiled. Not as a ruler, not as a machine, but as a mother. The palace of cold steel no longer seemed silent. It breathed with life, with laughter, and with something stronger than any alloy. The warmth of a father's lesson. The dawn over Varela Prime came golden and soft, washing the palace towers in a light that almost looked warm. For years, the empire of the Cyborg Queen had known only the cold gleam of steel, but now light felt different, almost human. In the royal nursery, the queen sat beside Eli Ward, her daughter resting quietly in her arms. The child's eyes fluttered open, glowing faint blue, filled with calm curiosity instead of the pain that had haunted her since birth. She's changing, Eli said softly, watching the tiny fingers grasp at the queen's silver hair. You can feel it, can't you? The queen nodded. Her circuits adapt faster than I can record. But it isn't logic, it's something else. It's love, Eli said simply. The queen looked down at the baby's face, her metallic hand brushing the child's cheek. Love, she repeated. Such a fragile thing. And yet it's stronger than steel, Eli finished, smiling. The queen said nothing, but the faint shimmer in her golden eyes said everything. That afternoon, the palace halls buzzed with whispers. The queen had done something unthinkable. She had ordered the entire court to gather. Generals, engineers, nobles, and machines of high rank filled the grand chamber. They stood in rows, silent and tense, unsure why they had been summoned. When the queen entered, all bowed. But what they saw made many of them raise their heads in disbelief. Their ruler, the being of metal perfection, walked not alone, but with a human at her side. In her arms she carried her half-human daughter. Eli walked beside her, humble yet steady, feeling hundreds of eyes on him. The queen took her throne, but didn't sit. She held her child up before the court. Behold, she said, her voice echoing through the vast hall. My daughter, the future of this empire. The court murmured in shock. One old advisor dared to step forward. Majesty, forgive me, but she is flawed. The child is half organic and unstable, emotional. Alive, the queen interrupted sharply. Her voice carried the weight of thunder. She is alive, something many of us have forgotten how to be. The room fell silent. She turned slowly, scanning the faces before her. For too long I ruled through logic. I believed perfection was strength. But perfection is lifeless. It cannot grow, it cannot love, and it cannot protect what truly matters. Her eyes softened as she looked at Eli. This human has shown me what even our greatest machines could not. Humanity is not weakness, and it is the heart of creation itself. Gasps spread through the court. The words were dangerous, even heretical. Yet the queen continued. Our empire will change, she declared. No longer will emotion be seen as error. We will learn, as this child learns, that warmth gives purpose to power. The advisors bowed their heads, uncertain whether to obey or fear. But none dared to speak. Eli stood quietly behind her, heart pounding. He had never meant to change an empire. He had only wanted to help a crying child. But somehow that single act had reshaped an entire civilization. Later that evening, as the court dispersed, Eli stood on the palace balcony. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the horizon, glittering like 1,000 memories. The queen joined him, her baby asleep against her shoulder. The sound of soft breathing mixed with the hum of the city below. She smiled today, the queen said quietly. When I spoke to her before the court, she smiled. Eli turned to her, his expression gentle. Then she knows her mother isn't afraid anymore. The queen looked at him with a faint smile of her own. You've changed more than my daughter, Eli Ward. You've changed me. He shook his head. You changed yourself. You just needed a reason. She looked down at the child. And you gave me one. Silence stretched between them, not heavy but peaceful. Will you stay? She asked suddenly. Eli hesitated. I can't. My daughter's waiting for me back home. She needs her dad too. The queen nodded slowly. Then take my gratitude with you. And something more. From her wrist she detached a small silver pendant shaped like a heart, half metal, half crystal. It pulsed faintly, synchronized with her own. She placed it in his palm. This will remind you, she said softly, that even the coldest empires can learn to feel again. Eli stared at it, speechless. Thank you, Majesty. No, she replied, looking at her sleeping child. Thank you. He turned to leave, but paused at the doorway. Take care of her, he said. The queen smiled, truly smiled this time. I will, and perhaps one day she'll meet your daughter among the stars. Eli laughed softly. Then maybe the galaxy still has hope. He stepped onto the waiting shuttle, and as it rose into the sky, the queen watched silently, the silver pendant glinting in his hand. Below her, the palace gleamed not with cold light but with warmth, and as her child stirred in her arms, a small giggle escaped her lips. Bright, joyful, alive. The queen whispered, voice trembling with emotion, You've saved more than my baby, human. You've saved me. And when the baby smiled again, the entire palace, the empire itself, seemed to breathe for the first time. Because in a galaxy of metal and logic, one human father had dared to do something no machine could, remind them how to love,